Hello, everybody. Thank you for. I will take it in English because we have visitors from other countries as well, and also, to be honest, my Swedish is not so good either. So I'm very happy of being here and having the opportunity of welcoming you here to the first edition of the Gothenburg Indie Film Festival. And well, before starting working with festivals, honestly, I had the idea that it was something very easy and fast to do, but I was very wrong. Even if it's something very fun and exciting to do, the truth is that it requires a lot of passion and a lot of work and being able to sleep little. But in the end, I think everything is about to have some sort of dream, some sort of interest of doing something that contributes to something to inspire other people as well. And even I haven't been here from the beginning. I know that the festival actually was born 3 years ago when Hamudi started this idea with other people from Academy Balan. And well, it has been a long process and well, a lot of work. And I have also seen like Hamudi has been working very hard, and many other people has been involved during the process from the beginning in different times. So it's a very collective work from the beginning. And well, it hasn't been possible without, of course, the support of our main sponsors that I have here. ABF, Medlab, from Lash, who has been from the beginning trusting and supporting this project, and we're very thankful because he has been really engaged with us from the beginning. And then also Göteborgs stad, Västra Götalandsregionen, Film Cloud, Kultur Ungdom, and Dog Lounge. And here is with us Julian Martin from Dog Lounge, who is going to talk a little bit as well about Dog Lounge.
Yes, my name is Julian McKinney, and I got involved rather late, I'd say. February, March this year, Hamudi contacted me, as a lot of other people do as well, and with a very, very ambitious and interesting idea, which was this festival. I'll just short tell all of you who don't know about Dog Lounge. We are a film club that exists in 16 different cities in a number of countries, and we try to have film screenings and scenarios that are similar to this. We show a film, and then afterwards we have a discussion with guests, politicians, music, etc. So getting away from the stereotypical Swedish way of seeing film is you go see a film and then you leave the cinema and maybe you look at someone leaving at the same time and think, we could have discussed this afterwards. So our goal is to work against this and make people stay and talk and sort of bring the message of the film with them outside afterwards and continue the discussions. So I'm just very, very happy to be here, and I'm very glad to meet the guests I met so far. The panel here is a extremely exciting group of people, so now I'm not going to talk anymore and let them talk. So thank you.
Yes, hello, my name is Love Lidén. I'm one of the organizers here. When Hamudi asked me to introduce the festival, I thought a bit about why I think it's important to do a festival like this. And basically, the world is not exactly as I'd like it to be. There are a lot of things that needs to change. It's not peaceful, it's not fair, and it's not sustainable. And just for one thing, we have a racist party in the parliament in Sweden, for shame, and our politics against refugees lead to structural violence and stuff like that every day. And when I hear these policies defended in public debates and in the political sphere, it's always in sort of abstract general terms in economics and integration and security and things like that. And then I meet my friend from Kosovo, whose wife and children are being extradited this week to a situation where the children had never been and where they possibly face persecution and they may be killed. And suddenly there is no arguments in the world who can justify these policies. So a single story makes all of these arguments fall apart. And that's why stories are so important and so powerful. And films are an excellent way of telling stories. So that's why I think that a festival like this can be important, and why I think that films can change the world.
Well, the program of the festival, I think, personally, is not because I participated, but I think it's very exciting. It's representing 31 countries. We have movies really from all continents, long films, short films, different categories, and we're going to have also workshops, lectures, and actually also in theater. Cadma company is involved as well. And well, we are happy to offer these 4 days, and we hope you can enjoy as well. And even if it's sunny, and of course everybody wants to be outside, it's really, it feels really nice that you are here, and well, we want to share good stories with you. And so we can start the panel. It's Nine who is going to be moderating the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, my name is Ismail Ishal. I come from an organization called Arabo in Historia of Greta. And I've been involved in this film festival since Hamoudi first came up to the idea. We used to call around the idea of having an independent movie film festival here. And like Daniela and Luba said before, we have a social justice angle with our organization. So I'm not going to talk a lot, but I'm going to go straight ahead and introduce the panelists. To our right, we have Morgan Gilhamad, who's from Southern Vilhor, the city that we want. And she's a social activist. And she's currently making a movie about this organization. And she holds a lot of medborgarstämma, which basically I think means city hall meetings, where local people come together and try to formulate solutions for social problems like housing and healthcare and such. And to her left, we have Uwe Senhe, who's a local professor who researches in youth culture and education and popular education, which I hope he can go into more in depth. And to his left, we have Johannes Wallström, who's a journalist, filmmaker, debater, social activist. And here we have Enver Ramirez, whom I've known for many years, who's a musician and a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker and feature films. And to his left, we have Darnell Summers, who's a lot of things actually. He's an actor, he's a writer, he's a filmmaker, he's a war veteran from Vietnam, and he's currently, he lives in Germany. And to his left, we have Mai Wechselmann, who's one of the most prolific filmmakers who's been making, I think she made almost 60 movies or something to that nature, and all her movies are, it talks about social injustice, and we brought together a diverse group because what we want to have like an unorthodox type of discussion. So let's start with Mai Wechselmann, who has a statement.
Ja, men Maj är så lång och så tråkigt. Men because I didn't only, my ambition, was not only to make social change. I would make political change. I would make the major political change in Sweden. I started like that. Very, very clever. So I shouldn't be the first one, because I think some of our guests from abroad should be the first one. I'll take it a little later.
I'm from Detroit, Michigan. And something just occurred to me. She said, well, I would defer to our guests. And I was thinking, the whole time I was thinking about what it is I was going to say. But I'm also a musician, and I went to the Detroit Conservatory of Music for about 10 years. And we used to have concerts, recitals. And I remember once I was there with my parents and the rest of the students, and I had learned my piece, and I went to the stage, and I just froze.
Oh.
I forgot the piece.
Ah.
And the one thing I remember, that the audience was very gracious, and they, I stood up, I was very embarrassed, and they all clapped, and I left the stage. My parents, in fact, my father was very livid and angry, and you almost made me forget what I was going to say. So, I'm coming from Detroit, and as you all know, Detroit's been in the news the last few years. Major collapse in the economic and social structure of that city. But the first thing I like to do is, I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I came to Europe in 1967, to Germany in fact. Of course, I knew before that soldiers were deserting the army and coming to various states in Europe, one of them being Sweden. And I'd like to thank, on behalf of all the soldiers who had the opportunity to flee the oppression and the Vietnam War and use their feet to vote against it. I'd like to thank all those Swedish people who played a role in giving these soldiers the opportunity to come here and survive. And I think that's appropriate. You know, I'm from the first television generation, and I've been discussing this theme with a few people here on the panel. And I've seen a lot of films, believe me, because in the beginning of television in America, at least, the programming was, let's say, limited, with quotation marks, because you had the game shows, you had the news, and old movies, and everything was in black and white, even if it was a color film, like The Wizard of Oz. I didn't see The Wizard of Oz in color until the 80s, you know, but I became very accustomed to seeing movies in black and white. In fact, I prefer to see movies in black and white, and I would like one day to maybe have a film in black and white. I think it's a challenging undertaking once you understand the techniques involved. But there were, living in Detroit, which is a bastion of culture, I had the opportunity to go to the Institute of Arts, Art Museum there. And there was a mural there, gigantic mural, and it was painted by Diego Rivera. And very famously, you know, in fact, he did murals, several murals across the United States in the 30s. There was a program. They had the Federal Writers Project, and this project and that project, and they also had a project for artists. And Diego Rivera was charged with the responsibility of doing this mural in Detroit, and it kind of like depicts the workers. Very gigantic mural, and you should, if you go to the internet, you should check it out. And so myself, as a young man growing up in this industrial city, in this working class environment, I was very struck by that mural, by that painting, you know. And every time I go home, I like to go to the museum and just go out there and look at it. But that particular art expression really had an impression on me. Although it's not a moving picture, it certainly came to life when I viewed it as a young child, actually. there were some other films that
Before you go into the film, what was the mural about?
well, it depicted workers. You know, they were all there laboring over, you know, either forging steel or they were on the assembly line. You know, they were working, they were sweating, you know. And they kind of like depicted the reality of, you know, living in Detroit, working in the plants of Michigan. And in fact, Henry Ford saw it and didn't like it. He wanted them just to destroy the mural. But some kind of way, that didn't happen. What did happen in other places where he did paint murals, they were destroyed. Other artists who had painted pictures in train stations and in other public buildings, they actually had their works painted over. So that's what they were depicting, you know, really hard depictions of day-to-day life. Realism, if you will, but in a very artful way. So that's what they look like. But that picture kind of like set the tone for my indoctrination, if you will. And there were several films, you know, and like I said before, everybody was showing films. There were only a few stations, you know, ABC, CBS, and NBC, you know, and their affiliates across the country. And so people relied, or the programmers relied a lot on films. So as a young man, and as a young boy actually, being involved in the first television generation, I got a broad appreciation for a wide breadth of films. And many different, some good films, some bad films, and some films in between. And living in Detroit, I lived on the border. So we actually had a fourth source of programming, and that would have been the Canadian programming from CKLW. And at that time, the Union Jack was on the flag. They have a new flag now, but then the Union Jack was on the flag. And they showed primarily English films and French films if you were living in the French-speaking part of Canada. And so I got to see other approaches to filmmaking. And of course, we had one program called Fractured Flickers, which was silent films. They had, you know, like silent films every show. So from the very infancy of filmmaking, I was able to like check it out. And I just wanted to just outline some of the films that just mention some of the films that affected me and kind of like steeled my way. One of them would have been All Quiet on the Western Front. I don't know if you're familiar with this film, but it starred Lou Ayres and some other very famous actors. But it's an American production, but it's based on a book by Eric Marie Remarque. Thank you, and a very controversial book. And Lou Ayres, the star of this movie, when the Second World War broke out, he became a conscientious objector. And I knew that before I even went to the military. And this was one of my favorite films. And it was a film, even in its edited version, it was a compelling film, and it showed me what war was all about, actually. You don't have to go to the moon to know that it's there. You know, there's certain things, certain experiences that one can have that can really open your eyes as to what that experience could be. And I saw, of course, a lot of war movies. They had combat theater, and so you saw just a plethora, a myriad of films. That being one. Another one was Attack, starring Lee Marvin and a lot of other famous actors. And it was the story of soldiers in the Second World War fighting in Europe, some American soldiers, and their rebellion against their superiors. And in fact, in this movie, they end up killing one of the officers, one of the corrupt officers, and it kind of like set the stage for my tenure in the United States military. Because when I got to the military, I saw some of the same things that were going on in that movie in real life, and so I kind of like reacted as if I was in that movie. Then there was a movie called Harvest of Shame, a documentary. And Edward R. Murrow, I don't know if you know Edward R. Murrow, there was a movie about Edward R. Murrow. He's a famous journalist, and from the Second World War on. And he made a documentary in 1960, which depicted the plight, the dilemma of migrant workers going from one end of the United States to the other, picking strawberries or picking apples or whatever, cucumbers or whatever vegetables, and how they had to live. And it was a movie that finally cost him his career. But that one movie, Harvest of Shame, really kind of like radicalized me. So if it radicalized me, then it certainly had maybe a similar effect on other viewers, other people who saw the film.
The first movies that you saw, they were explicitly anti-war and military, yet you joined the army. How come?
Well, I told Ismail a story the other night. I'm in a play, it's called Wallenstein. And this Wallenstein is a story of is one story of the 30 Years War from 1618 to 1648. And there's this director collective, this theater collective called Remedy Protocol, and they did a modern adaptation of this film, of this story, of this great literary work from Friedrich Schiller. And in that modern adaptation, they took people from real life and supplanted the characters from the play. And I was one of the Pappenheimer, one of the soldiers in this play. And being a Vietnam veteran, because I had this experience of war. And one of the first lines I had in this film was, I fell in love, she broke my heart, and I had to get away. So the United States Army was the quickest way for me to let's say, mend a broken heart. Detroit wasn't big enough for myself, my former girlfriend, and her new boyfriend. So I just left. And quite frankly, if you look throughout literature, you see the same story. You know, it's a quite common story in literature and in real life. People have go to the military for various reasons, and that was mine. I had a broken heart. You know.
On that note, I'd like to
Go
answer
on.
Johannes' question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Johannes, you currently made a movie called Mediasite that talks about media in general, how it's operated and censorship and such. Could you give us a background story? How come you made that movie? What was the reason behind it?
I'll try to get there.
Okay.
I'll just try and tie in a little bit
Absolutely.
to Darnell's statement about being the first TV generation. Can I ask a hands up on who doesn't have a TV at home? You see, like I guess it's pretty much enough. You can see kind of that. I would say that to an extent, many of us here are representatives of the first non-TV generation. And what that means is something actually quite interesting, because television as such, as a phenomenon, is something which is incredibly expensive. And being expensive to produce, it also means that it is something which centralizes power. Because in order to do it, you need a lot of money, and you get state support, or you get oligarchy support, or whatever it can be. And because of that, TV has a tendency of homogenizing ideas and homogenizing social movements and so on. And
What do you mean by homogeneous? Can you give us
because basically speaking, you have, well, not long ago we didn't have more than 2 channels in Sweden. And even if you have more channels, since they are so expensive to produce, it means that you need to get the money from one or other resource, and those resources are usually very few, because they are the ones that will be giving you the support to be able to fund it. And that means that those ideas and those political streams and those movements, they will be crystallized in the television. I don't need to lecture you about how those things work, but I mean, basically, of course, certain TV series or certain films will be lifted up on television, and certain will not be. And it's a natural event in any TV station in any country. But I wanted to give you a different example, and the reason why I asked if there are people without a television set is because the film that we produced is somehow an example of the consequences of this shift, of this technological shift. Of course, it's not only a technological shift; it's something much more. But our film is called Media Stand. It was produced by Ken Loach and Julian Assange, and produced.
Media stand.
Media Stand.
What does that stand for?
Stan is like in Afghanistan or yes, Absurdistan, Media Stand.
It's like a place.
It's a place. It's I would say it's a state of mind. That's my opinion on Media Stand. But I hope that you will see it on Saturday. Those of you that will have time. And the film was basically produced without any external funding whatsoever. The funding that existed was either taken from our own pockets, and that means mine personally, and the people that were involved in the project that worked for free and it took us 3 years to do, and by Ken Loach, who was very kind. Yes, who was very kind to give us his brilliant editor to edit the film. And when the film was completed, that was in October of last year, it came out at the same time as a Hollywood picture which was called The 50 State. And both of these films are about, but only marginally about WikiLeaks. They're not actually about WikiLeaks, but they're about the phenomena that WikiLeaks created. Our film is a documentary. It is about the state of the media. It's about how various journalistic entities and media work in conjunction with power. The Hollywood film, The 50 State, is about the irresponsibility of the internet generation and how that can lead to danger.
Yeah, I remember seeing the poster, even my reaction when I saw the movie for the first time. The poster even said on the forehead of the actor, I forgot his name, Trader. Yeah.
So the Hollywood film was produced by Disney, and it had something like, I think it was $30 million a budget for the production. Another $30 million was marketing budget, and then I don't know how many millions in distribution budget. It opened in the United States in the end of October in 1,792 cinemas. Over the weekend when it premiered, is there sound coming out of it?
No, there's an echo, I think.
Over the weekend when it premiered, which was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it was viewed by roughly 40 to 50,000 American viewers. That means that in each cinema there was approximately 30 people that went to see this film over the 3-day period. At the same period of time, our film was for 3 days released on the internet in the United States. It was geo-blocked so only Americans could see it for 3 days, and it had 500,000 viewers. So what I'm trying to say, and the reason why I think this is important to say, is that we have already today come to the point in time where it is possible to not only make films which are outside of the financial system, outside of necessarily having to get state-sponsored money or oligarch money or whatever that can be.
It still has an impact.
You can do it, and you can also disseminate it. You can reach a true audience. Of course, the feeling is different from when you're in a cinema, and that's something which needs to be adapted. But already today we have come to the point in time where we already have an incredible technical revolution in the cinema industry, and this is going to continue, in my opinion. At least I hope. And that's why I'm very actually happy about this project, because I think this is one of the first attempts of, well, it's happening everywhere, of course, in the world right now, but in Sweden it's one of the first attempts of taking this process into the cinema halls. Do you agree with me about social changes?
I think
You do. But you want...
No, but take your first. If you're not too long.
It can be very long. No, but I think that what you just said is it's also my angle in the reason why I'm here, because we have during the last like 2-3 decades seen development in Sweden where the gaps between those who are wealthy and those who are poor, the gaps have expanded, and we have had patterns of segregation and people who are, so to say, living on the margin in the big cities, in the metropolitan areas. And during the 90s, we could see the development of a kind of suburban culture, a kind of multicultural development came out of these areas where you could see that what these mainly young people wanted to express was through music. They wanted to express their kind of position within the society, and it was definitely a critique against the development in society. And during maybe the last like 5-6 years or so, we can see that from that we have a kind of third generation of hip-hoppers, so to say, coming out now, and not just doing hip-hop in the more traditional sense, not just looking upon themselves as cultural activists or musicians and so on, but we can now see that what's actually happening, for example, in a city like Gothenburg, we have a kind of social mobilization, which have a very kind of political angle to it, and this social political mobilization is not just through cultural means or cultural expressions, but it's very heavily relying upon what can be done within music and within writing and not at least in filmmaking. And this, what you talked about was the simplicity of today's technique to do movies, to do films, and this has opened up possibilities to a degree that we didn't really know about earlier. And if you see what's happening today with for example, in Biskopsgården and other parts of Gothenburg, where the Panthers, for example, as an organization, is now in a way organizing the suburban youth. And I think that to do this kind of collective identity work, which is a part of that social mobilization, you have to have narratives, you have to have a story to, so to say, interweave. The people must be woven into that kind of texture, into that story, become a part of a bigger tale, a story, or a narrative. And then I think that the filming is an extremely important tool for that. Because there is this film also in this festival called, it's the film made by some guys who have followed the Panthers. I'm a damn Panther, I think it's called in English. Jag är fan en panter in Swedish. And I think that film is of importance, but also what other people are doing. I mean, for example, Enver, I suppose he will talk about his own project on black exploitation and so on. But all these things happening right now, and it's very interesting that what people are doing within, so to say, a great variety of cultural expressions, they also connect these expressions with kind of political analysis, which connects these expressions to social mobilization that is going on. And it's not just Gothenburg, it's Stockholm, it's Malmö, it's a lot of other cities as well. So this is why I am very impressed and very grateful for this event and this festival. And I hope that it will we can permanent it and make it, so to say, a remark. I mean, to really make a kind of platform, because there's a lot of things happening all over Europe. 2 weeks ago, we had a guest from London who made a film of his own on the riots, 2011, and it was shown here.
Or the riots in the UK.
Yeah. So, and he is going around all over Europe showing this film, and he has built up a network of people doing film and people who are connected to different types of collectives and political activists and so on. So I look upon what's happening now here as a part of a much bigger pattern. And this is what is interesting to me. I mean, I've looked at some of the films, and I mean, I'm astonished. It's great quality, very interesting films. So it's I'm really hopeful about the possibilities of using film as a tool for social change.
Thank you. Okay, I cannot agree more. I mean, my due and thanks to ABF, some of my films can be seen on internet. You just go to my website, www.wexelman.se, about nuclear power, Fukushima, about Ogaden, about our wonderful royal family, which couldn't show anywhere else, I assure you. But as a dinosaur, I come here, hello, I'm a dinosaur, is that okay? As a dinosaur, I really would like to talk about what has been and how censored media are now when you compare it to them. Can I do that?
You can do that.
And of course, I'm so selfish and egocentric that I'm mentioning my own films as examples. Is that okay?
Yes, totally fine.
Okay. In '72, I made a film called Begin, the history of a military airplane. It got the film critics, they don't exist anymore, the film critics prize, and it was shown for 2.5 million Swedish television and US audience, okay? And it really made some changes. Two congresses, social democratic congresses, decided that we are not going to make any more military airplane, okay? And Satan was in it too. But, you see, then came this whiskey on the rocks, right? This was in 79, so on, that they decided, we are not going to make any more. Satan is going to be put down, yeah? Okay? No more military airplane. Then came, and this is very important for you who are not Swedish. You come to the most righteous, the most just, fantastic country in the world. But now you are listening to a little saga and a fairy tale. Okay? Can I tell you a little fairy tale? Okay. Then comes this Russian submarine. It is 76 meters long. Do you know how long that is? That is the whole place here in front of us. And it is 11 meters high, and it's constructed in 1944 by Ulrich Gardner, a Nazi constructor, and it's built in 1948. And it goes straight into a fjord where it cannot dive, and it goes up on land as the second submarine in the world. It goes up on land, it stays there because it cannot, it must be dragged out of that. And it cannot also turn around because it needs, to turn around, it needs 1 kilometer bend, rage. You know? So, this submarine is a spying submarine. Everybody knows it's spying in the most secret place of Sweden. Isn't that so? And, everybody says it. Every single newspaper in this country says it's a spy. And the minister says it, and especially our wonderful Carl Bildt says it. That makes his career. He gets a job as a state minister on saying that. And after that comes 2,000 more submarines. Russian submarines, Soviet submarines into our territorial waters. And this is not questioned by anyone. And when they, this is a political story, and it's not only film, but I think it's mixed with each other. Because can you say, no, it isn't so? You couldn't say that in Swedish media. If you did it, you were threatened to murder you. Yeah. So I got really threatened that time. Okay, I'm not going into that. But 10 years after that, there was a commission saying that there were no Soviet submarines. There were farting hearings.
It was all made up.
They said it was farting hearings. It was a state parliamentary commission who said that, not me. So, so that was a very odd experience about media functioning as they did. But then comes another, not taking all of them, comes another which is more sad, because in 1991 we go down to Iraq. There has been a war.
The Gulf War.
The Gulf, yeah? And this Gulf War, you know what they say about it? It is it's a surgeon war. It's a surgical war. It chirurgiskt krig. It doesn't affect any civilian. And there we stand in front of 21 bombed electrical power plants. And do you know how many there were in Iraq? How many were there? 21. So they bombed Iraq back to Stone Ages. And I don't think that you really have got that message until now. Even if we made that film, it couldn't be shown in television at all.
And when you talk about Iraq, I remember the period, just the prelude to the war, there was this big story, I don't know if you remember, about this girl who talked about children being killed at the hospital in the incubators, and then it came out that this little kid was the daughter of an ambassador. So it's kind of like when you talk about how the spies came in, you know, the submarine spies, you know. Yeah. And it was, from what I remember, it was, I think the first time you had this thing called embedded journalism.
Yes, embedded journalism.
Absolutely. The first
Embed.
Embed.
Yeah. Because, during the Vietnam War, you did have journalism, which I try to show in my new film on television, Evidence, Witnesses in Framtiden. Den går på SVT Play, ni kan se den där. It was my film about where we stand in front of those destroyed electrical power plants. Was shown on any big festival, San Francisco, Berlinale, what you name it. No television in the Western world showed that. So that really supports your opinion about it. And then now we have another submarine situation, and you will not agree with me, but I give a shit in it. We have 49 Russian separatists in Ukraine burned alive. It's quite a situation. It's a pogrom. It's worse. My whole family was murdered in that way in Ukraine.
During the Second World War,
the ones who murdered them are building. You can just go into internet and look at Stepan Bandera.
Yes, the fascists.
They're old fascist
and using him as a hero.
Yeah, you will see 20-meter high statues of him. To Carl Bildt, our now foreign minister, who made his career and is continuing his career. It's a very, very little party. They can't make these statues in Western Ukraine, but they have done it. You know, they are certified at 4% there. And are we getting the whole truth about Ukraine? Yeah, so how to hell do we behave to the Western media? And how to hell do we behave to the worst Western media just now, which is the Swedish one?
Okay, I'm not answering that question now, but your question. But what's the
my question was, your organization, you like a grassroots organization that tries to organize local people. Can you tell us more about that and why it's important?
Yeah. So we are, call it the city we want.
Yeah.
So we are creating forums for people to come together and see what changes do we want to see in our city. What proposals, like what the actual, like concrete things do we want to see changes, the solutions to the problems we have in the city. And we did a big citizen summit in the end of March. This is our first citizen summit, so we had different themes, looking into a broad vision on the city, looking at instead like education, and we have democracy, the housing situation, inclusion, we have the environment. Yes, exactly. And so we bring people together, and then first we get some knowledge from some knowledgeable people, tell what's the problems today and what possible solutions can we see. And then we have the big discussions with people coming up, what proposals do we have to solve these problems? So we sit down and do that, come up with a lot of ideas, and then as well we think of like prioritizing what things should we start with, what proposals. So that we did during a weekend, and then we've been developing the ideas, and then going and having meetings with politicians. So we're gonna pass this forward to politicians for it, it's about citizens being part of developing your society and your city. And it's the main thing is we want to raise the question about democracy and the power relations as well. Like, do you have a possibility to influence politics today, and how can you do it, and how can we develop democracy today? That's the question we're raising, but now we're starting with bringing up the issues, and we are collecting them in a citizen agenda, so we are having so we can give it on forward to the politicians.
And you have already done that, or?
We have not done it yet.
No, yet.
We are planning to give it forward for the next big to make like the city council's meeting. It's going to be 5th of June. It's going to be the next. We're thinking to come and give them a big thing. So actually, we're thinking like me. I'm an organizer and activist. I'm not a movie maker. So that could be as well. So now, you said I was making a movie, but I'm not the one making the movie. I'm the organizer, and then I'm collaborating.
It's about the work.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm collaborating with movie makers about telling the story about what we are doing. So we're hoping that on the 5th of June we're gonna hand over as well this big piece of citizen agenda. We wanna get help from the movie makers to make a thing of it, so we can like officially here you have it. So we have it as well on tape. And as well, we can make a thing about it. And I think to continue go back to the films, and I think it's really important to, like now, what you were talking about, like media, etc. Like we need the good examples and to show what people are doing, and as well. Good examples of what people do for actions, and that you actually can change the world, and you can make changes. Because you see a lot of, in the media, all the problems and all the war, etc. And if you're going to act, you need to have inspiration, and you need hope and encouragement, etc. And I think people feel a lot like powerless, and how the hell are we going to change the world, all those things. But if you can see good examples of other people doing things, you get inspired, and you can do things. So I think that's a really, film is a very good tool for showing, to spreading those things of actions, what you can do. So I think that's a good collaboration with the activists and filmmakers and sharing that together. And I think going back as well to the powerless, I think it's a really good thing. The film, as you have been talking about, how today as well as the landscape is moving, is changing of who can show films and make films, etc. And I think that is really, I think about, you know, the documentary Bananas and the big boys goes bananas when they're making a documentary about the banana industry. And then the biggest company in, no, it's actually Dole, doing the fruits. They are suing the people doing documentaries showing their bad business. And then they, with film showing how, oh, it's a really bad story. But by following with film and movies, they're showing the whole story. And you know, they have the big Dole, the biggest fruit company in the world, and then you have some movie makers. The power relation is huge, but then with the film, we can actually have a big impact showing how it's like. And I think it's really powerful. And I don't know, that's what I was thinking about. And
you spoke a little bit about democracy.
Yeah.
I remember when Ember Ramirez made a video a few years ago called True Hope of inom. And when you made it, I remember there was a Hala Balu. They called you from the city council, which has given you money.
Try to sue me.
Okay.
Us.
Yes.
We will make it that.
Yeah. So tell us what happened.
The thing is, we did this video with Matt Quifted. It's a rap group from Gothenburg suburbs, you know, from Biskopsgård and Angered Search. And the manuscript that they gave me was already radical. It's a bunch of immigrants or people from the suburbs storming the city hall and taking the politicals as hostage and forcing them to see video clips of the city that they rule over, you know, demonstrations and violence and police brutality and how the politicals, the corruption in this town, you know, there was a corruption scam a few years ago with Gothenburg Indie, a lot of businessmen.
You mean the scandal?
The scandal.
Revealed by Victor Granson.
Yeah, of course. And not only that, it's a lot of things. You know, in this video, they go in there and they tie them up and they force them to see the city that they made. So the same day after the release, that was on the news. It was all over the news, and the police was looking at it and trying to find how they could sue us, you know. And first they tried to take it as a hoot. How do you say hoot?
Threat.
Yeah, like a threat. You know, we were threatening them.
Actually, I remember the surname Anneli Hultin, who's like the chairman of the city council. She came out and she said you were like a threat.
Yeah, she should have threat. Yeah, it was a threat against the democracy, and she felt it was threatening. We threatened her personally because her name appears in the video, in the clip. But that clip wasn't a clip that we filmed. This was a clip from the Channel 4 News in this scandal. So they couldn't use that. Actually, they couldn't do anything. The video got 150 views, I think. 150,000 views in I think 5 days a week or something like that. And the point got across, you know. The point got across that there's a lot of this. And also at the same time as we released the video, the rap group, Mike Clifton released a manifest. When there was points that they were demanding, you know, our voice is never heard. Nobody cares about us. The youth, the people, the immigrants, the losers in all this, you know, in all these circuses, the people from the suburbs, from the segregated areas. So the point really got across, you know, making this video. And then we make 3 or 4 videos too.
and it's a very radical rap group, I would say, with very political angles, you know, and it's not the how can I say, the youth from the suburb, from the city areas. I'm not a youth, but I identify myself with them because, and we don't believe in, you know, in this politics, you know, where people don't go to vote and stuff like that because, because whatever happens, it doesn't matter because we're always going to be those ones to take the hit, and this was a way to show the frustration and stuff like that. So in everything that we do, almost everything that we do it for free. You know, it's just to get the point across, you know, and make the media, the alternative media.
But you also send the video to the politicians on email. So every politician in Gothenburg got an email with a link. You can connect on the web.
They got it in the morning. So
they became horrified.
Yeah, but that's the only way, you know. It was not just the video; it was the whole manifest.
Yeah.
You know, it was the whole manifest, and it's great. It's written in good Swedish, and the way that to make that point across, and they come with the link. But then it's like the manifest. They read it, but the scandal was about the video.
And they started this investigation of where did the money to do that thing? Where did it come from?
And I remember them calling you and almost auditing you.
Yeah. I had to, how you say, a redovisning. I have to, I have to show accounts for 3 years of the association. I'm from the same association as Ismail. Alla har en historia. It means everybody got a story. And 4 or 5 years ago, they gave us a bidrag.
They gave
Subsidized funding.
Yeah, and we got funded for the great work we did, and with all the money we bought cameras and audio equipment and stuff like that to do movies, and they gave us this money for the freedom of speech and because we wanted to lift the voices from the suburbs and stuff like that, you know. And then suddenly when we did it, it wasn't that kind of voices they liked.
Exactly.
So, but I just laughed the whole way out, you know, because I like that. And I wasn't afraid of the law or anything, and I was just enjoying the whole ride.
Yeah. When you talk about this, I start thinking about Johannes film, media stuff. One thing that struck me is when you go around these Central Asian countries and you try to get some of the cables published in the news, how frank and honest people are about censorship and how they understand that there are certain stories you cannot tell and how they don't even try to hide it, you know. But when you do that with the Western media, they all come up with excuses just like when they call you, you know, this is undemocratic and such, you know. So it always like, I always find it strange that dichotomy, where it comes from. Because I remember growing up, I grew up in Somalia before the collapse. And I remember we used to have a functioning government. And I remember like everybody in the country, they understood the conditions that they were under. Everybody understood that the government is oppressive, and when you put on the radio and they say, oh, today we built 5 hospitals and opened 5 schools, everybody knew it was a joke, you see? But then you come here and you see that people somehow, you know, they have this perception that the media is like, because you know, they say democracy, in order for you to have a functioning democracy, you have to have a well-informed citizen. And the media, they take it upon themselves that they're like the 4th branch of government and they're giving you the truth. You see what I'm saying? So I would like to hear some of your reactions to that.
And the sad thing is that people believe them.
Yeah?
But I would actually disagree with my them, because I think that what is happening now is, and I'll cut into your question also, what can be done, and answer your question. I think that people don't actually believe in particularly much anymore. And this is the interesting thing which is happening with the advent of the internet, and with the fact that a lot of people have turned off their TVs, and with the fact that we don't actually even particularly much read the newspapers anymore. If we do, then we read them online, and we should compare them with 10 or 20 other newspapers. But the point is, I think the place where we are in today, compared to, say, 20 years ago, is that the Western world was very often described as having a different system than the Soviet one, in the regard that the Soviet system had censorship, and the Western world had illusion instead, right? And it's much more easy to read between the lines than to see beyond the illusion.
Okay.
But I'll go back to the question of what can we do. I'll share with you a small anecdotal story from how I tried to get my film out in a TV station. I'm not going to tell you the country or what TV station it was. I'll just say it was a very big TV station in the European country. And I had a meeting with the chief of the TV station, and it was in a fancy restaurant, and we had a cup of coffee, and we chatted, and I gave the film to the chief, and the next day I returned because we were going to discuss the film, and then she had seen it by then. And she told me that, oh, thank you so much for the film, it was very interesting, and she had some questions about me. So she says, Johannes, can I ask you, how old are you? I say, I'm 32. Okay. And tell me, what kind of education do you have? I say, I have this and this and this education. She says, that's interesting. And where have you lived? I say, I've lived in these different countries. She says, okay, that's interesting. So do you mind if I ask you one question? So a young man such as yourself, with the education that you have and the background that you have, are you by any chance surprised about anything in the film? Are you surprised that there is censorship in the media? Are you surprised that we don't publish everything? Or that we don't do these things? Or that we listen to people? Are you surprised? And I said, well, kind of. And she says, look, I'll just be very frank with you. This very topic that you're talking about is something which all of us know, all of us understand here, right? Around this table. And around this table is she, I, and her assistant. And she says, this is a topic which interests maybe another 20 people in our country. Because most people, they don't care. They want to see tits, they want to see blood, they want to see sports. They're not interested in these kind of, philosophical, complicated conversations. So I'll just be humble with you and say that your film is interesting, but we'll have to pass on this time. So, why did I tell you this anecdotal story? I told it because most of us, if we're involved in some kind of social projects, or if we're doing films, if we're doing anything of this sort, we sooner or later come into the position where we hit onto these
to the limits.
not what do you call them? Gränsvakt, what do you call them? The gatekeepers. And when we hit the gatekeepers, it could be a film festival, it could be a TV station, it could be all kind of different things. A funder. In that process, we notice where the borders are, and film it. Next time somebody tells you that we don't want to support your film because you're doing some kind of stuff which is not what we want to support, go there with a camera and put it out on the internet.
We did. We put it on the Western.
So the point is actually that okay, so if the gatekeepers are there, and we can start talking about the way that they work, we can start exposing this very process, but we can also go further. We can just ignore them. And when we ignore them, we're actually reaching the process where they are the ones that are becoming irrelevant.
And by ignore them, you mean you try to find your own venues to get your ideas out, like with Mediastan or...
Exactly, but this is not just about Mediastan. It's about, if you spoke about Ukraine, it's already becoming irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant what Carl Bildt thinks about Ukraine. And this is something which
Not fully agreeing.
Well, it's relevant on the political level, but on the discussion level, they are becoming irrelevant. The big medias, the more they censor, the less they have relevance in our public.
But when you say like it don't have relevance, it makes me think about, for instance, Maish made a movie of Ogaden, which is a region in Ethiopia, which actually my father comes from, you know. And I remember, I know for a fact, because I'm part of the Somali community, that there are atrocities still being committed in Ogaden. And I remember the incident with the two freelance journalists, Martin, what was his name? Martin Shibe and Johannes Bershon. And I remember thinking at the time there was a lot of coverage on the news. But mostly, as I experienced it, was mostly about them being wrongfully imprisoned. And I remember Carl Bildt coming out and saying, you know, you have to give diplomacy a chance and let it play out, you know. So I think it still has relevance, you know, for the people on the ground. You know, the truth don't come out. For instance, like here you're talking about Ogaden, like these things affects us in ways, you know, you wouldn't even believe. Like you said, people, they get pension, and they get the pension money with blood money that's being invested. So I'm not sure if I agree totally with you. Yeah, you can come in.
Well, we talk about democracy here.
Yeah.
You know, I hate that word. I hate it. I've hated it for a long time because I don't know what it means. People bandy the term around. Now, I just had to check in the internet just to check the definition. For what I remember going to schools, basically it means it comes from the Greek word. I can't pronounce it, but rule of the people.
Yeah.
Now, the examples that people like to put forward in terms of, you know, shining examples of democracy, first and foremost, the United States. Now, we all know that the United States was founded around 1776. That's when they had the revolution. These people got together with these 13 original states and founded the United States of America on stolen Indian land. Women didn't have the right to vote.
Slavery.
They had slavery, the genocide of the indigenous population, and had the nerve to talk about the rule of the people. Now that's a contradiction in terms. To me, democracy is only a buzzword. It's only a word that, like I have a friend of mine, he likes to say, the only right you have in America is the right to obey. That's the only right you have. And to me, another guy by the name of Bob Mbeki, he wrote a book, he said, democracy, we can do better than that. If what they put forward is an example of what we have today, it's supposed to be democracy, I don't want any parts of it. And they always use this thing. And if we go look at the Ukraine for a minute, and by the way, as a young child, my father had several friends who were of Ukrainian descent, and I used to call one of them. They were best friends of my father, and one of them was my Uncle Johnny Turchak. I know about Ukraine, I know about Ukrainians, and I know about Ukrainian food, because I ate it all of my life. And every time I saw Uncle Johnny, he would give me a silver dollar, So my heart bleeds for the Ukraine, this recent situation in Ukraine, this woman Nuland, I can't remember her first name, and ambassador Victoria Nuland and the ambassador were having a conversation. Anybody who's been following this story knows
the conversation that was taped.
Yeah, right. And they said, well, fuck the European Union.
Yeah.
Now I might say the same thing, but in their particular context, it meant that they had little or no regard for any legitimate wishes of the people, and they wanted to manipulate and place into power the people they wanted that would represent their interests in the Ukraine, circumventing the quote unquote legitimate electoral politics of that particular country, the United States doing that. But that's just business as usual. They've been doing it for decades, for hundreds of years they've been doing this. This is part and parcel of their modus operandi. So when people start talking about democracy, what are they talking about? You understand? You know, this democracy is responsible for, in the form that they present, and I'm a Vietnam veteran. And one thing I want to say, I thank the Swedish people for welcoming soldiers who deserted during the Vietnam War to Sweden and to Scandinavia, basically. But I also have to criticize the Swedish government for not allowing those soldiers from this current era the right to come to seek refuge in this country, fleeing from the Iraqi
I think on that note, we have to invite in the time is running out.
Time is running out.
Yeah.
Time can never run out. Time running out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll open it up to the floor, of course. But I just wanted to say this. Let me 30 seconds to wrap up. You know that as an affront, it's an insult to all clear thinking and fair people on this planet. For these people still to run this scam they got about democracy. That's my position.
Bravo.